We are indeed live. All right, live a little later than I thought, but excited to come at you guys with this. I'm just gonna tag everyone once we go live. I just spent the last roughly 24 hours talking to more than half of our clients. I talked to 232 nurses, and I want to share with you the top three things that I learned from that. The things that I think are going to allow all the nurses here to continue with their journey or start their journey in their best way, common pitfalls, and hopefully we can have a little discussion around it too, because I'm sure there's things out there that weren't even addressed. If we've never met before, my name is Coach Ryan. I'm the head coach and owner of RM Body Transformations, and I'm here to help you break through. Our mission is to create 1,000 fit nurses, and as we do that, transform the lives of over 10,000 people, or impact the lives of over 10 million people. All my numbers are are at sorts today, but I'm just going to tag everyone in here so people can be notified we're live. And let's see. All right, let's go. So, three things. Those three things are going to be a couple stories, strategies, and a lot of this will be mentioned, what will be in relation to what we talked about yesterday. So if you weren't on yesterday's call, buckle up a little bit. So yesterday, we talked a little bit about how potential is like an electrical current, right? Everybody has all the potential to be anything they want to be, 100%. You can lose weight, you can make money, you can do whatever you want, right? The potential you have is limitless. The reason that everybody doesn't have what they want is because just like an electrical current, there are toggles between each of, we'll say, the resistors. You know, I'm not an electrician, but I think that's what they're called. And this is the summary, is really quickly, if these are off, you can't get the result you want. So the three things are your state, your story, and your strategy. When you have all these things turned on together, your potential can reach to results and you get what you want. Now, the problem with this is if you have great state, but your story isn't where it needs to be, or you have, we'll say, a great state and a great story, but you have the wrong strategy, again, you're not going to get what you want. You need all three working together. The most tragic is where you have somebody that has an amazing story, a great strategy, but in the moment they feel defeated because, let's just use weight loss, they step on the scale and they're disempowered because, oh my gosh, I've been doing all this effort and I'm up a pound. Now I feel terrible. Well, now their state is disempowered and you can't do anything from a disempowered state. So we're going to start there. We're going to start with what I believe is the most important. I talked to over 232 nurses in the last 24 hours, all our clients. And the one thing that I see as a pattern again and again is the clients that are doing extremely well are the ones that have systems in place to be able to move from a disempowered state to an empowered state. Now, of course, that's easier said than done a lot of times, but this is why having a coach can be so impactful. Now, this isn't me, giving you an advertisement of why you should be a coach or why you should get a coach. But the fact of the matter is, any journey we go on that is challenging is going to have setbacks and bring us into disempowered states. So having a third party, a coach, that can bring you back into an empowered state to keep you on the journey and reframe things from negative to positive is so impactful. It's probably the most important part of having a coach other than the accountability. So this is crucial. And if you're here, please let me know you're here in the comments. If you're on Instagram or if you're here in Facebook, let me know you're here, and I'd love to have some discourse with you guys, because this is some of the things that I found, and I'd love to know if that's been true for you as well, right? This isn't me talking at you. This is, us coming together to create better ideas and strategies to make you fall through for good. But that was one of the most important things, and part of that is having that third party, but another part is just learning to reframe. So one of the things I heard again and again and again is something that normally would get me off track for a day, I'm learning to get it to have it. I'm learning to shift how I feel about it sooner, so that it doesn't take me down as long. That's powerful, because I've said this before, but it's so important to have it said. The most successful people with weight loss, the most successful people, I think, with anything, uh, all have bad days or bad moments. The difference is the duration of those moments. That's what matters. So let's use somebody that's like super fit, right? The ideal fitness. They feel as discouraged, most likely, as all of us, but the difference is they feel discouraged for a minute instead of a week. You can imagine how 10 discouraging moments that turn into 10 discouraging weeks, yeah, that would slow us down tremendously. So the idea is, how can we minimize that? And that's a big piece. So hopefully that resonates to somebody out there. But we need a winning state, a winning story, and a winning strategy. I won't dive into all of this because this is what we talked about yesterday on the podcast, and you can go watch that if you want. But I think it was good. But you can let me know. If nobody watches it, then it can't be that good, right? Belinda says, "Hey guys, Belinda, good to see you. Hope you're doing great." So that was the first thing, is the nurses that are doing the best can change their emotional state the fastest. And that is a skill that needs to be developed, right? It's not something that happens overnight. Second thing is, things feel slow, right? That is what I hear. That's what I heard a ton. Slow and steady. The first thing, right? Again, going to stories for a second. When we're thinking of a story, we want something sustainable, right? I would rather slow and steady versus drastic and then we stop. And the what was it? Where is it? Where is it? I have it in my notes. Oh, there it is, right there. So the example is, why do motorcycles pull over when it rains? Right? They pull over because if they kept trying to move forward, it'd be dangerous and they could wipe out and get hurt. I made a TikTok about this actually just recently. And a lot of times when things are going slow and steady, that's actually a good sign. When things are getting challenging and we're going through an emotional storm, it is crucial that we, instead of trying to push through it and go harder, in my opinion, because it's not about having a Rocky story. It's about 2 years from now, your Rocky story is the fact you never stopped, right? And that the progress is still coming. And granted, 2 years from now, you'll probably be at your final goal. But when you're going through an emotional storm, the most successful people know that they should pause. And when I say pause, I don't mean they just say, well, I'm not going to work out or eat well. They focus on their foundations. So I've heard a lot of stories over the past 2 days about people that are, going through deaths of family members. A really common one is extra hours at work. So things that are kind of out of our control, and life is happening. So what do we do? And the people that have continually lost weight or continually changed their body and their mind are the ones that, and I'll tell you what, like during this period, this has probably happened 2 to 3 times for the most successful people already. So they're getting familiar with it. They dig their heels in and they just focus on the basics. Am I getting my sleep? Am I getting my water? Am I hitting my protein goal? Now, for somebody else that's a little more advanced, those basics might be even a little bit more. Am I still getting my weight training? Am I still A, B, and C, right? But for the majority of people who are less than 12 weeks in, 20 weeks in, those are your foundations, right? If you're 20 weeks in, you're probably even your foundations are like macros at this point. But when the emotional storm happens, we have to dig our heels in and just focus on not gaining weight, focus on maintaining, right? Just like, as we said, a motorcyclist pulls over when there's a storm. They do it so that they will not get damaged, right? So they don't fall, so they don't completely wipe out. You guys can probably hear my son in the background. I think he's upset about something. I don't know. But that's crucial to have that ability, right? And when the storm passes, then you can move forward again. The thing that we have to be able to delineate is this thing something that has an end, or is this a new part of life? And if it's something that will pass, we hunker down, just like with the hurricane. You don't go out during a hurricane. You don't try to, like, I don't know, go grocery shopping in a hurricane. Why would you do that? You don't try to manicure your lawn during a hurricane. You batten down the windows, right? You stay safe inside. It's the same thing. Fitness is an infinite game. So it's a game you start and never stop again. We want to stop trying to do it as fast as possible and do it in a way that lasts forever. That's what I'm finding amongst the nurses that are having the most success. So far, if you're just tuning in, the nurses that can control their emotional state the best are having the most success, and that can be in help with their coach, and then also people, they have the systems in place so that when they're in a negative spot or a disempowered state, they have actions that pull them back to an empowered state. And we can brainstorm on some of those if you want to, if you feel like it's helpful. And then number two, when you're going through an emotional storm, to dig your heels in and maintain, and then accelerate again, right? Belinda says you have to practice happiness and positivity. Sometimes it doesn't come automatically. That's why you have to practice. It's 100% true. Like, happiness is a practice, right? Every emotion we want to experience is a practice. And everything that we're experiencing today is really, I know this is going to sound super corny, but it's like we don't experience life. We experience our interpretation of life, right? And I know that might sound very matrixy or whatever, but it's true, right? Why is it that some people can have, bad things happen to them and they still remain joyful and grateful and happy? It's because of what they're focused on. Focus creates our experience of life, right? What you focus on is what you'll feel. So in Belinda's case, right, you have to practice focusing on happiness and positivity. Now, that's not to say that you ignore the negative things that are happening. I'm a believer that if you have something negative happening, right, you have a stressor, there's three things you can do. You can rip it out at the source. You can change the way you view it, right? Cognitive behavioral therapy, reframing. Or you change the way you cope with it. So you trade, you don't just eliminate a bad habit, you trade a good habit for a bad habit, which takes some practice as well. But you do have to practice. It's crucial. And then the last thing is when to accelerate fat loss. So if you have been on this slow and steady track and you're like, all right, cool, this all sounds great. When do I kick it into gear? When do I lose more? And the answer is when you have your foundation. So the way I like to think of it is like there's 3 levels. So you have level 1. Level 1 is like sleep at least 7 hours a night consistently, right? And by consistently, if you're working 24-hour shifts, that's really tough, right? So, let's call it 50 hours a week. So let's sleep, right? 50 hours a week. You're hitting your protein goal, within 90% every day. And you are getting in your water, right? So at least, at least half your goal weight in ounces, right? Those are your foundations. Super simple. And then on top of that, once that's been cemented for maybe a couple weeks, you can start focusing on macros. Now, macros, you already have your protein, so it's just carbs and fat. And then at that point, all you're going to do is start focusing on, your fat and carb numbers. And you want to try to focus on high volume foods that are going to give you more satiation for less calories. And then also even mentally, like, hey, I enjoy these foods more, so I'm more, emotionally fulfilled. Not that we should get a ton of emotional fulfillment from food. But with that in mind, you accelerate fat loss when the foundations are there. So 9 times out of 10, when you go into a caloric deficit with the right macros, you will lose weight. And it's possible to have that not happen, but it's just uncommon. I heard this a couple times, and this is something that we'll be solving with some of the clients that I reached out to, is they're in those caloric deficits measuring, but the weight's not coming off yet. And there's a lot of variables to that. One is, stress and cortisol. If we are in a constant stress state, that is not conducive with fat loss, right? Hormones control a lot. The thing about hormones, though, it's so interesting, is exogenous hormones. You have more control over your hormones than we give ourselves credit for. Exogenous hormones are one way to change your hormones. Another way is what you think about. And I can prove this to you because, one, there's been studies on it, but 2, you can even feel it in your body. If you were to, let's say, focus on all the suffering in the world or all the injustice or something that just really pissed you off, right? Or got you fearful or outraged, what would that do? Well, that would get you angry and that would get your cortisol spiking, right? And you would probably feel more energized, but not positive energy, just energy, right? Rage, if you will. And if you focused on that for about 5 minutes, you probably see your heart rate increase and you would be outraged, angry, right? That'd be the primary emotion. On the same token, if we were to take 5 minutes and count your blessings and focus on something that truly brought you gratitude, right? Whether it be, I don't know, your kids, a moment with your kids, your your paid off car, the fact that you have a job that you are changing lives, or just a moment with a patient that you had recently where you felt like you really made an impact and you focused on that for 5 minutes, you would literally feel your cortisol reduce. And of course, like, we may not feel what that feels like, but we would feel calm, and that would change your hormones. So we have more control over our hormones than we want to give ourselves credit for. So if you are finding that weight loss isn't coming as quickly as you want and all the numbers make sense, you're tracking everything, my invitation to you is what's going on? What are you thinking about? What we think about has so much control over our hormones. It's ridiculous. Anyway, rambling a little bit. But when should I accelerate weight loss? When your foundations are there. And more importantly, when there's no emotional storm. If you start to accelerate your fat loss because you go into a deficit with your macro targets, you have your protein, your sleep, and your movement, your protein, your sleep, and your water, and there's no emotional storm, and then one comes, stop. Just dig your heels in and go back. There's nothing wrong with just focusing on foundations, right? It's kind of like, it's the best example I have is like the motorcyclist, right? If you're doing a cross-country trip, which is what this is, you're doing a cross-country trip, or around the world trip, right? And as you're going around, you cannot drive through blizzards. You cannot drive through intense tropical storms because the chance of you wiping out and going back to square one is too high. You cannot risk it because if it happens once, you have to reset. So what we have to do is optimize for starting and never stopping again. Like, that's the key. So there's no problem in moving a little bit slower. Totally normal, totally fine. Bridget says, not trying is the easiest way to avoid failure. I personally think it's worth trying to be happy. Bridget, that's such a great point. I didn't read the book. I saw a title of a book that a friend of mine brought up where he said, it's a book, it's called, If You're So Smart, Why Aren't You Happy? And it's so interesting, but it's true, right? Like, it's so easy to get so focused on external metrics, our career, how much we're earning, our social status, whatever, external. We don't take nearly enough time to focus internally on what, is going on between our two ears. Like, our experience of life happens here. And like, look, it sounds super hokey. It's like, okay, cool, but like, what's the action that's going to get me the result? But truly, your experience of life happens here. And if there's one thing that I heard after talking to the 232 clients that I've talked to over the last 24 hours, it was that I did not expect the mental gains to be as significant as they were. Like, I was expecting to feel better. I wasn't expecting to question how I viewed myself for the last 10 years, right? I didn't even realize that my self-talk was the way it was. I didn't even realize how I was viewing food. I knew that, like, hey, I overate, but I didn't realize how deeply I was an emotional eater and why. And now I can start to solve some of these underlying things as well. Like, this is truly a mental game. But it's one that once we solve, is solved, I don't want to say for good, but it should be, right? Because, you're building foundations. You're not just like, the thing I don't like about a lot of approaches in today's, we'll say, towards fitness, is it's just so focused on mechanics. It's like, hey, do this thing, do this thing, do this thing. And then if you have a coach, all they do is they just keep you accountable. And then if you don't do it, they're like, well, you should do it. And it's like, what is that? right? If we really want to make this change happen for good, we got to get to the source. We got to really go deep. And then we can transform. Like, that's what a transformation is. That's when you break through. And, I'm really grateful too, because, out of the clients I reached out to, I'd have to say over 99% was overwhelmingly positive. I'm really grateful we have the coaching team we do. Just the praise that I heard for Andrew, Sharon, Charity, Chase, Rachel, Danielle. I mean, the team we have is just fantastic. I'm really grateful, because we wouldn't be able to be making this level of impact without the team. Like, there's no way. Like, just in the last 24 hours, I reached out to every client, and like only about half responded so far. And even so, like, it took me all day to respond. So like, there's no way I could do this alone. No shot. And remember everything? No way. So I'm very grateful for the team we have. Shout out if you love your coach, let me know in the comments. Jean says, my sister says she doesn't have the happiness gene. I think it's because she doesn't try to be happy. Yeah, it's an easy excuse to say, oh, I wasn't born that way. Or, oh, that's not the way it is. Because guess what? It gives up control. They say that the way that you get, so I'll say this in a couple different ways. The first way is, the way to be happy is progress, right? Like, that's really what it comes down to. You don't need to be at your goal yet to be happy. You just need to be making progress. And that's the truth for every human I've ever met. Every client I've ever coached, they are happy when they are experiencing progress, not when they hit their goal. And it's easy to give up control and say, well, I'm a victim. I can promise you, I've been there. I've drank the Kool-Aid of being a victim, and guess what? It sucks. It's an excuse. Like, you don't get anywhere. So being a victim is like not a choice. It's not a good choice. The way to win is extreme ownership. Between on one side of the spectrum being a victim, and on the other side of the spectrum having extreme ownership where everything's your fault. Even the fact that you were late to work because there was a traffic jam you had no control over. Well, I could have left earlier. Having extreme ownership is how you take control of your life, right? It's the truth, right? We just need to experience growth. Bridget says, I think I already read that. Belinda says that's where the practice comes in to change the way we see things. Practice smiling. Cortisol levels will go down. I mean, this is true. Like, focus controls feeling. I said this in yesterday's podcast, right? What we focus on is what we feel. And when we're talking about changing emotional states, the best way we can do that is by moving, right? When you move, you literally change your biochemistry and your hormones, right? And you don't need to do like a super intense 45-minute high-intensity interval training workout. You don't even need to take exogenous hormones to change your hormones. We already talked about this. You can do it right now. Posture, right? You change your posture from a slouch position to a standing position. Why do you think I do a lot of these talks standing? I do it because when I'm standing and I'm tall, I'm in a better state so that I can serve better, so that I can have better distinctions and hopefully better ideas. I mean, I don't know if it's working, but it tends to help. And they've done studies on this. I think it was Stanford or Brown. I talked about it yesterday, where somebody who is standing in a Superman, hands on hips position, looking out into the horizon for 2 minutes, they test their hormone levels and they have a raise in testosterone, male and female. Crazy, right? 2 minutes. Same thing is also true when they had you focus on, I think it was either 2 minutes in a slouch position or 2 minutes focusing on something that made you angry. Cortisol goes up. Crazy. So super powerful. We have a lot of control. Another way is just focus, right? Which is what just was. Where focus goes, energy flows, results soon follow. If you focus on the news, if you focus on all the injustice in the world and all these things, you get angry, you feel powerless, and you feel like, what's the point? Right? Versus if you can focus on, well, hey, look, I got one life, right? Like the person who says, let's say an atheist, right? An atheist who says there is no God, so therefore Life is meaningless, so why do anything? And he kills himself. And then the other atheist says, there is no God, and I'm not saying there is or isn't, right? I'm just giving you examples. The atheist says there is no God, and because of that, I have no destiny. I can make my life whatever I want it to be. How exciting. Same scenario. They believe the same stuff, or they don't believe the same stuff. They believe in the same religion, essentially, but they do not believe the same story. You can take the same circumstance and have two drastically different stories. The question is, what is your story? What do you believe? Our beliefs shape us. And like a lot, when we think about our beliefs, it's like, what do you believe? What's your religion? Like, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the beliefs of what you believe about yourself, what you believe about the world, right? You are what you are and where you are because of what's gone into your mind, period. All your stories, all your beliefs you have about yourself are because of what's happened during your life. And if you're in a position where your stories don't empower you, you can change them. You can change what you are. You can change where you are simply by changing what goes into your mind. It's powerful. And a lot of the stories that I see with a lot of the clients that, I talk to at first when they're starting, and especially if I got them into the program, is, man, will this work for me? Like, ugh, I've done so many things. Why is this going to be different? And I have to say, I heard that probably at least a dozen times with my reach outs, was like, I'm going to be honest, I was super skeptical, but I'm so glad I did it because of A, B, and C, right? They all had different reasons. But, I'd love to know too, people, listening, like Charmaine or Belinda and Amy, I believe as well. What was your feeling like going into this? Did you have those feelings of failure before? Like, I've tried so many things, like, why will this be any different? And then what made you pull the trigger? So interesting. Belinda says, yes, I love my coach. Coach Chase, let's go! Amy says, Charity is amazing. She's a ray of sunshine. Reminds me to constantly forgive my mishaps and try to keep pushing forward. I mean, that's the key, right? This is like this. I made a Instagram or TikTok about this just a couple minutes ago or a couple hours ago. I'm losing my perception of time. And it was about, fitness is an infinite game. It's a game that starts and never ends. If we really want this to be something that lasts forever, we have to always just be moving forward. A lot of people approach fitness as a finite game. Okay, a time-based goal. I'm going to be this much weight by this time. The problem with that is, even if you get there, which is rare because there's emotional storms that happen, even if you get there, what happens? Well, now you have no more target. So you go back to old habits, right? Whereas if instead it's a lifestyle change and it's new habits that get put into place, that's where you win, right? We have a couple people on Instagram as well. Lynn, what's up? Lynn says, nope, I had hope and knew it was going to work. Let's go. I love that. Lynn knew it would work. That's awesome. Yes, Laura, you did make it to alive. But yeah, I mean, making this change happen for good, I can't tell you how many people said this is a mental game more than a physical one. I didn't realize how much of a mental game this was going to be when I started. But I'm so glad I did, because not only is my body changing, but my life is changing. It's funny, I've heard people say before, man, this is really a life coaching program. And that's funny. And I love it. But that's kind of what, it's kind of right. This is not just about, we're not going to tell you to leave your husband or anything. Well, I won't, but this really is about your life. You guys have probably seen the Pyramid of Mastery before. It's you have the Pyramid of Mastery, and that's going to be foundation is physical body, emotions and meaning, relationships, time, career, finances, and then fun and contribute. Your foundation is your fitness, and right above that is your emotions. That's what we focus on. We focus on your foundation, your emotions, your meaning that you have to circumstances around your life. If you can focus on these two things, your physical body, your vehicle at which you experience the world, of course your life's going to get better. Even if nothing else in those other areas change, they will get better because the vehicle How you are experiencing life changes. I think it was Wayne Dwyer, who I think is no longer with us. He said, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Easy to be said, hard to do, right? But that's what it seems like people are doing, nurses are doing through this program, and I'm thrilled for it. You know, just recently this week, had kind of this realization that we've been kind of moving forward towards our mission, but inefficiently. Where moving forward, I really want this community to be nurses that are focused on this, all encompassing. And I wrote down some of the things that I think, what's the target? And I had to define it. And the target that I came up with was being a fit nurse, right? Like fit nurse TM, because I think it's kind of funny, right? TM. But what goes into being a fit nurse, right? And I wrote this in the description. But the things that came to mind for me were, number one, life happens to us. Life happens for us, not to us. That's a story we tell ourselves. That's a belief. That's a belief of a fit nurse. That's a belief of somebody that has broken through in our community. They also believe that this is an infinite game. This is a game that starts and never stops. I am not trying to be perfect. I'm trying to keep moving forward. That's the key, right? Like, I do not get fit. I am fit, right? The goal is not to get healthy. It's to stay healthy. Another one I wrote down is no cheap dopamine, which this is a tough one. This is one I struggle with to this day. No cheap dopamine is essentially like removing things from our life that are easy to do, so low pain, high pleasure, but bring no fulfillment. What's an example? Scrolling on social media, right? It's a doom scroll. We get nothing out of it a lot of times. And what we're left with is feeling fatigued and loss of energy. Because this is like, and I've said this a ton of times before, but a reminder for anyone as well, there's 3 things human nature holds on to that we need to remember. Number 1, we'll always go towards pleasure. Number 2, we'll always go away from pain. Number 3, we'll always work to conserve energy. So your brain, this is how it was developed over time, right? Your brain will always try to get pleasure with low pain and conserve energy. What's the easiest way to do that in today's day and age? Netflix, scrolling social media. No wonder nobody wants to exercise and eat well. It's too much effort. What do you mean? You're telling me that I can sit down and have a 1 effort and have a 1 pain and a 4 pleasure? I'll do that all day, right? Versus, okay, it's going to be a 4 for making dinner and then a 4 for enjoying it. I'd rather do this instead, right? And that's probably a bad example because we all need to eat. Let's use exercise. So like exercise, it's going to be a 4 for pain and then a 3 for pleasure. No wonder we want to sit down and do nothing instead, right? And it's interesting because I found that energy is more mental than physical, right? Think about it. What is physical energy? Physical energy is just calories. Like, we have no deficit in America of physical energy, calories. Everyone's got more calories than they need, right? The problem is energy in the mind, right? How do we fix that? Again, part of it is feeling progress, right? That's why you can feel energized when you start something, because you feel like things will get better and you're making progress towards something. You don't even have to be at the goal yet, right? But I should read the comments before I keep going here. Laura says, me too. I shared my poster in the Facebook group to inspire all and me. Let's go. I can't wait to see it. Belinda says, I have no time limit. For 2 months, my weight stayed the same, but I feel so much better continuing with the new lifestyle. Come to find out, during these 2 months, I gained 5 pounds of muscle and lost 5 pounds of fat. Isn't that crazy? There's a video I made a while back. I'll share it here as well. Super powerful. It's this one right... Where is it? Oh, I think it might be on the second page. It's right here. It's described, I think it's written as, why your weight staying the same is the best thing that can happen to you. right. Yeah, podcast 14. Yeah, 14. So if you haven't seen it, I'd recommend looking at it. I'll post it in the comments. Me clapping it up. If you guys want to check that out another time. But yeah, like in that video, we pretty much talk about, hey, look, in the beginning especially, it's super common, but it can happen at any point during the journey, especially when you start resistance training. You have two levels that make up fat or make up weight in your body: lean body mass and fat mass. Lean body mass is bone, water, and muscle. Fat mass is fat. It's very common when you start resistance training, your body holds on to more water, you start building a little bit of muscle, and you probably don't add a lot of bone density super fast. But what happens is these levels move up and down at the same rate. So if you're using the scale as your main measure, you feel like a failure. Oh my God, I'm doing all these actions. Why aren't they working? They are working. Right? They are working. We just have to, keep doing them. And you'll know if it's working because your clothes are changing in the meantime. Your clothes are fitting better. Everything's starting to change. And that's really where you'll be changing, right? Even though it doesn't feel that way. I need to plug in my phone before it dies. Plug. There we go. Super impactful. So Belinda, I'm super happy that you were able to make that distinction, right? And, I think that's super powerful too, because again, this goes back to what the main thing I talked about when I opened the video, talking about emotional states. The people that have gotten the most success for the nurses I reached out to, or for the nurses that I heard back from on the program, they are very good at either with the coach's help or on their own, moving from a disempowered state to an empowered state. Belinda, you could have seen your weight stay the same week after week and thought to yourself, well, why am I even doing this? This is a waste of time. Disempowered, stop. Or instead, you chose something different, right? You said, well, hey, you changed your focus to, hey, well, all these things that are happening that are positive, my body's changing, or my clothes are fitting better, I have more energy, this is a lifestyle change, I'm never going to stop, so why even matter? It doesn't even matter what the weight is, because I know I'm going to get there eventually, just never going to stop. And when you do that and you almost surrender to that, all the results just flow, right? And that's not pie in the sky, you're experiencing it, right? It's good stuff. Gene says, it's definitely mental. If you know I had a double ruptured aneurysm in November 2023, gained 30 pounds. I've been trying to get it off, and I've been mentally unprepared with all the doctor's appointments and going to the dentist for 2 teeth that broke. Oh my gosh. Trying to save my life. I lost a little, gained it 3 times back. Whoa. I'm finally done with all the surgeries. Last one was July 24th and done with the neurosurgeon. Today was my last dentist appointment. Yay, that's awesome. You can put it behind you. So now I can finally focus on me and doing the things Ryan has suggested. As for the lessons I learned in the challenge, this time it's going to be better. Yes, it definitely will be. And I'm here for you every step of the way, right? I make sure everyone knows this, whether you're a client or not. I make these videos in the group to help you break through. This is a free coaching session. It's not a very focused one, but hopefully we get a lot of ideas out. We can bounce around and something sticks for somebody, even if it's me just sharing a resource I've made in the past that, can have an impact. I'm happy to. But if this has been beneficial for anyone, feel free to, like this video. It shows it to more people. But yeah, it's so powerful. I was looking through some of the catalog of podcasts that we've done, and we've done over 100 podcasts, which is crazy to think about. But I'd have to say some of the most impactful that I think need to be rewatched or I need to bring up again are that one I just shared. So why your weight is staying the same, and why it could be the best thing that can happen to you. And then the how to lose 1 pound per week, which is usually the first video we have everyone watch when they join the group, because it's super, super duper powerful. But I'd be curious to know too, what right now are some of the obstacles that you guys are experiencing, whether you're with me now live, you're one of the 10 people with me, or you're watching this on recording and I'll be able to respond later. What what obstacles are you experiencing that you feel like you need help getting over? Or do you feel like right now, look, it's clear sailing, baby. I'm on the right track. I'm getting it going. And really, I'm good. I'm good. It's a good place to be. I would love to know. And as you guys write that in the comments, kind of rounding out with this summary. So the three things, if you're just tuning in, the three things that I got from talking to 232 nurses, which are our clients, are number one, that they are very good at changing their emotional state from disempowered to empowered. Number two, when they're going through an emotional storm, they stop, dig their heels in, don't focus on progress, just maintain. And then number three, might have to look at my notes. Number three. When to accelerate fat loss was a crucial thing. And answering that, which is when there's no emotional storm and you have your foundations. I was actually mid-thought before, and I was sharing what I believe makes up a fit nurse, right? So it's like the belief, they're all beliefs. What happens, life happens for us, not to us. This is an infinite game, no cheap dopamine. I explained that. Our body's our foundation, which I described already, talking about how you have these layers to life, if you will. And you have on the bottom physical body and emotions. And then also, this is a powerful one, grow or die. It sounds heavy, right? Grow or die. But it's true. Like, I think it was the Chinese proverb, if just like a tree, if we're not growing, we're dying. 100%. And we already talked about it, but you feel alive when you're growing. You know, when you're not, you don't. You feel like you're dying. And I've said this to my team actually a lot over the months and years, that I really do believe we're saving people, not just from a physical death, right, but from an early emotional death. Because how many people do you know that walk around that are they're just zombies, man. They're just not experiencing life. And you might even have remembered when you were at a point like that, or you might even be at one now. And it sucks. And I've been there many times. So it's like, how do we break through from that? How do we break through? And I think this is what we're talking about. It's a good way. And then also just empowering others to do the same, right? Like, I feel like one of the best ways to continue to feel good and to almost like remind yourself is by preaching it to others, by sharing, by empowering others. It's funny, Zig Ziglar, who's a motivational speaker, he used to say when he would get on stage and he would do his seminars, he's like, this is my self-talk. Like, as I'm talking to you right now about all of these things that I believe you should be doing, he's like, I'm really saying now, Ziglar, you better be doing these things yourself, right? And as I tell you guys about it, it just reinforces it deeper in me. Like, this is an infinite game, not just fitness, but everything, right? Being a great dad, being a great leader in this community, right? This is an infinite game. There is no magic pill that I can make one video and everyone goes, oh my God, Ryan, that was the one. Thank you so much. I never need anything again. You did it. That's not how this game works, right? Like, just, it's an infinite game for me too. I have to go live. I gotta go live. I don't know about every day, but like near every day, I need to be able to give what is needed, and hopefully over time I'll just get better at it, But yeah, like no cheap dopamine. That's a big one for me. Video games have been a part of my life since I've been a kid. It wasn't food for me. It was video games. So like when life it wasn't giving me what I wanted, I'd go and binge on video games for 12 hours a day in my youth. And yeah, like I just, then that turned into social media and scrolling and, that, like, just to get real for a second with you. This might be too real. Get ready. So like talk about the no cheap dopamine. I feel like cheap dopamine steals our life from us. And you probably heard the video on Netflix. It's called The Social Dilemma. It talks about this a little bit, but when we give ourselves low pain, energy conserving, so not a lot of energy that you're putting out, high pleasure actions, it essentially tells your brain that this is the best way, these are the best actions to do because they make you feel the best, give you the lowest pain, and reduce and essentially mean you don't have to exert calories or conserve energy, right? It allows you to conserve energy. But by doing that, you're telling your brain that everything else that requires more energy, more effort, and doesn't give as much pleasure, or maybe it does give more pleasure, but a lot more energy and a lot more, or maybe some more pain, it is literally pulling you away from those things. So everything you want in life, which you've probably heard before, everything you want in life is like going to be it's like hard to get type of thing. Like it's going to be anything worth doing is going to be hard type of thing. There's a truth to that. And social media or doom scrolling or video games or whatever's going to be low pain, high pleasure and energy conserving will kill you. So I don't play. It's a fight. I don't play that game. Like so much so, I have a phone for social media with all the apps, and then I have my regular phone. Man, like I'm not too much of a religious person, but like social media is the devil. And I know we're on social media right now. It can be a really positive thing. But man, like it has stolen a lot from me over the years, right? Like I want to be a great dad. I want to be present for my son. But man, when I'm deep into video games and scrolling on social media, I'm so exhausted. My son wants to do something and I'm like, nah, I'd rather just sit here. What the fuck is that? That's not the father I want to be. It's a joke. It's not the person I want to be. I want to be the person that I feel like I am in the moment right now. My state is empowered. And I'm like, my son says, let's go outside. I'm like, let's build a fort outside. Let's go swimming. That's where I want to be. And if that means that I have to trade some cheap dopamine for it, fine. Like I don't need to scroll on social media. I don't need video games, right? That doesn't help me be the person I want to be. So it's the difference between pleasure and fulfillment. Are the actions you're doing just bringing you pleasure, or are they actually bringing you fulfillment? Actions that are bringing you fulfillment, which fulfillment I describe as just like making you happy even after the action is complete. Pleasure is just experiencing something and then not feeling great after, right? Which is fine to do once in a while, but it can't be a habit. Not if you want to live the best life you can live. That's my stance. Laura says, Linda's saying diabetic husband keeps bringing junk food home that even he should not be eating, but I can only choose for me, not him. Yeah, that's a tough game. I mean, we should probably do a podcast on spouses and partners. The best thing that I've seen after working with the amount of clients I have is you be the example and you show them, you essentially trick them into it. You show them how enjoyable it is to be eating the way you're eating and how easy it is. So you essentially show their brain that this is easy, it's pleasurable, and it doesn't take a lot of effort, right? And then they start to adapt. It's not a one thing fix, but it can start to change habits. That it can remember that happening quite a few times. So, being the example can definitely be powerful. Jean says, I'm just the opposite. Everyone in my family lives very long, 90s and 100s. Wow. So I want to be healthy even if that's going to happen to me. Hell yeah, definitely. Laura says, my husband's a gamer, but he claims it helps with his, slows down his brain and helps him focus better. Yeah, everything is pros and cons. I could argue that me playing video games helps with my stress. Right? Because it's a distraction. But the key is, when I stop doing it, am I better? And the answer could be, well, yeah, I'm a little bit better because I'm not as stressed. But did I fix the thing that was making me stressed in the first place? Right? It's a dichotomy that needs to be managed. It's not right or wrong, but this is just my belief, is that like when I play video games, when I exercise cheap dopamine, I'm a worse human. And I think it was my wife 5 years ago, before she was my wife, we were talking and she said, what I really like about you? You're really good at being a human. And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, you're just always trying to get better. And like, you don't always, like, you've tried and failed many, many times. Like, you've said you've like started this thing and it didn't work out, but like, you always keep going. And like, you're just like really good at being human. And that is a part of my identity. Like, I want to be the best I can be. You know, when I was a kid, I was in martial arts, and one of the things we used to always say was, I'm on a quest to be my best. And that's true. I am, right? And it's not always pretty. We all know this. It's not always pretty. There's emotional storms, but the fact is, this is an infinite game. I'm on a quest to be my best, baby. And there might be setbacks, and there might be days, it might be weeks, it might be months, it might be years, it might be decades. I haven't had any bad decades yet. I've had a bad year, though, in the past. But the truth is, you know, I just believe I'm on a quest to be my best. So I was talking to my wife recently, and it was, you know, having the discussion, and she, you know, she's very much, she holds my approach that I do with coaching, which is like, hey, if you feel you need it, you know, why don't you do it a little bit? Or if you feel, if you want it, go with the flow. Like, whether it be video games or scrolling or whatever. And, you know, the thing that I just, you know, always go back to is like, will it make me more of who I want to be? And I feel like it's common to lose sight of who you want to be because we haven't defined it in a while. Or we've never defined it. Like, when's the last time we've taken a moment and we've written out, you know, who we want to be? You know, 7 areas of life. You know, I'll share these with you really quick in case you've never seen them before. Let me pull it over here. Boop. Let's see, will we be able to see that? Yeah, you can see it sort of. So you have physical body, emotions, relationships, time, career, finances, you know, contribution. You know, when's the last time, you know, we really sat down and said, all right, here's what I want for my body. You know, here's what I want. Here's really what I want. You know, a lot of times we set goals that are within our, we'll say, control, but we've lost sight of that big North Star, and we've kind of accepted things as they are. But the truth is, like, you can have anything you want. And that's not me to be like, you know, pumping you up and just be full of smoke. It's truly a belief of mine that as long as you have an average IQ, right? Which, if you're here talking to me now, I would imagine you do, right? Average IQ. And you have any rate of learning at all, you can get anything in life you want as long as you don't stop, right? And you believe it's possible. That's like, you know, I think it was, there's many stories of this. I think one of them was Colonel Sanders. Like, Colonel Sanders, let me look. When did Colonel Sanders found KFC? He was 40 years old when he founded KFC. So he was 40. And the first franchise opened when he was 62. Damn. And then it became the massive empire, and he died when he was 90, right? He didn't even get started. His success didn't even start until he was in his 60s. How many of us, our belief right now is that, man, once you're 50, it's all downhill from there. Why does it have to be that way? Why can't it be you're always climbing until the very end, and on your last day, you just fall off a cliff? Right? Like, why does it have to be downhill? It doesn't. It's our beliefs, right? Interesting. Gene says, I think you're right. From having to slow so far down because of the aneurysm recovery, I'm not being fulfilled. I was always a get up and go, do person. And for the last year, I've been restraining in my recuperation. And it makes me feel so depressed, right? But I'm getting better each day. I'll just have to change some of my thinking to be happy. I'm going to lose this weight and get back to me. Hell yeah. And I'll tell you what, with that belief, right? So you're in an empowered state right now. With that story, you can do it. You definitely can. Laura says, I'm 58 and I'm more active now than I was in my 20s. Let's go. That's what it's about, right? Like, age does not define you. You define you, right? You can have what you want. You can be as fit as you want to be. You can have the emotions that you want to be able to experience. You just have to have a target And then you have to, have a plan, and you could test and iterate. Like, I think one of the things that makes our program so successful is the fact that we do not say, here is the perfect plan based on what we know, here you go. Week 1, you do this. Week 2, you do that. Week 3, you do that, and it will work. It's not how it works. The only approach that has the highest success of working, in my opinion, when it comes to people and not when it comes to like the mental side, is it has to be personalized around you and what's happening right now. Because the truth is, anyone on this program, if they were to do it last year, 6 months ago, today, 6 months in the future, or 12 months in the future, it would be a different program. Why? Because things are happening differently in their life. And that's important. Because if you just try to do 75 hard, the chances of being consistent are quite low, right? We know why the success rate of a lot of these fad diets are not high. So, anyway, been chatting about an hour. My God, that absolutely flew by. Gene says, good for you, Laura. You can do it. I'm 63 and I'm not done yet. Let's go, Gene. Happy to hear that. Go, Gene, go. Well, I appreciate you guys being here today. It's been a pleasure, and I'm here for you. I'll probably be back tomorrow. And if you are watching this on live, feel free to ask any questions that you have in the comments. We'd be happy to help. Our mission is to help 1,000 nurses become fit nurses so that we can impact 10 million patients. It's a powerful thing to think about, right? Like, even if every nurse just impacts 10,000 people over their whole career, and we can have 1,000 fit nurses that essentially embody our beliefs and are leading that life of feeling full. 10 million people. That's wild. And I wouldn't be able to do it without our team, our coaches, and of course our clients, our nurses. So I appreciate you guys being here. I appreciate you joining me on this mission. And just feel blessed to be here. A lot of fun. Loves talking to you guys. Hopefully you like hanging out. And if you don't, sorry. But as always, if you're ready to start your journey and you're looking for some help, feel free to click the link above or below. I put it somewhere. You can apply to work with us and see if coaching could be a good fit. And that's about it. I'll see you guys tomorrow. If you guys also too don't follow the social medias, I recommend only having notifications on for things that empower you. So whether it be like these lives or things of the sort, attention is the most valuable resource other than time. So you want to guard yours, right? So we could talk about that another day. Anyway, I'll see you guys soon. Bye. Belinda says, I love this team. Heading to the gym. Let's go. Hell yeah. Laura says, catch up with you on the upswing. Let's go. Gene says, thank you so much. Don't know how much I needed this exact message today. You rock. I'm happy for you. Happy to serve.